Strategically, the Mongol conquest of the Khwarezmian Empire was a total victory, due to the failures of Shah Muhammad to organize a unified defense, leaving each city to its fate. Yet, some commanders displayed courage and skill against the might of Chinggis Khan's armies. And here, we look at one such commander, Temur Malik, the governor of Khujend, who, for his resistance, became a national hero in modern Tajikistan. After presenting his story, recorded by the Persian historian Juvaini, we will discuss this depiction. But for now, here is the tale of a Khwarezmian who defied the Mongols. Little is known about Temur Malik. We can assume he was Turkic and was governor of Khujend when Chinggis Khan's armies attacked Khwarezm in 1219. After dividing his forces at Otrar, one division of 5,000 under Alik Noyan marched upstream of the Sirdarya River to Fanakat, which fell after 4 days. Due to contradictions by Juvaini, it is unclear if Alik Noyan commanded the division further, and one suggestion is that Alik Noyan was sent on to Vaksh, while another force, possibly under Chinggis Khan's sons Chagatai or Urgadai, was sent to Khujend. In late spring 1220, 20,000 Mongols and some 50,000 prisoners reached Khujend, then governed by Temur Malik, described as the superior to Rustam, the great hero of the Persian national epic, the Shahnama. With only 1,000 men, Temur Malik knew the odds were against him. As the citizens of Khujend fled to the citadel, Temur Malik encamped on a fortified island in the Sirdarya to resist the Mongols. The Mongols were soon upon him, capturing Khujend and forcing many into the Hashar. But Temur Malik stood defiant, for his island was out of reach of the enemy's arrows and siege weapons. Unable to reach him with missiles, prisoners were forced to bring stones from the mountains to dam the river. Temur Malik did not sit idly by, and built 12 barges covered in wet felt, layered with clay, kneaded with vinegar, with arrow loops built in. Thus, fire-resistant and safe from Mongol projectiles and naphtha. 6 ships attacked from each side, sending arrows at construction crews and at night, launching surprise attacks, halting Mongol efforts. The length of the siege is unknown, but it was long enough for supplies to run low for Temur Malik. He loaded his provisions and men onto some 70 ships, with himself and skilled archers taking a lead barge, and at night sped downstream. The Mongols followed along, but when they came too close, Temur Malik met them with his barge and repelled them with arrows which, like destiny, did not miss their mark. Yet Mongol riders were fast, and at Fanakat, a chain was set across the river to stop the fleet, which Temur Malik broke through. Messages then went to Jand, where Ulush Adi blocked the river with boats, siege weapons upon them. When Temur Malik received news of it, he disembarked, fleeing to the Khwarezmian capital of Gurganj. Though he pushed on, the Mongols pursued. Temur Malik acted as rearguard, holding them back for the baggage train to get ahead. Then he too would follow, but his men fell one by one. Still, Temur Malik fought until he alone was left. He spurred his horse on, chased by 3 Mongols. He had now only 3 arrows left, one broken without a point. Turning to his pursuers, the pointless arrow was sent into the eye of one Mongol, and scared off the others with a warning. Juvaini provides little detail on the time after Temur Malik reached Gurganj. He captured Yarkand, but withdrew, possibly due to infighting in Gurganj. In early 1221, the son of the late Shah Muhammad, Jalal al-Din Mingburnu, arrived in Gurganj with his brothers, informing the emirs that he was now Shah, but soon fled due to conspiracy against him. At some point, Temur Malik joining him. Likely, Temur Malik fought alongside Jalal al-Din through Parvan, the Indus, and beyond, until Jalal al-Din's death in 1231, and Temur Malik traveled to Syria as a Sufi before returning to Fergana, living in Osh, but traveling to Khujend to visit his son. Temur Malik's son had been allowed by Batul Khan to maintain his father's possessions, possibly even the governorship. When Temur Malik visited, he asked his son if he would recognize his father. Too young when Temur Malik began his voyage, he said no, but there was a slave there who would recognize him. After the truth was established, Juvaini notes that Temur Malik went to collect debts he was owed, but those persons refused to recognize him. Seeking justice, he decided to take his chances and travel to the court of the great Khan and beg his clemency. On the road, he ran into a Mongol party led by Khujend, a son of Ergadai, where he was interrogated and recognized by none other than the Mongol he had blinded with an arrow. Khujend was enraged by Temur Malik's failure to treat him with respect as royalty, and in anger drew his bow, letting fly an arrow which was the reply to all the arrows which Temur Malik had discharged on that former occasion. As Juvaini says, Temur Malik was thus removed from this transient dust heap to the abode of eternity. This story is told by the Persian historian Ata Malik Juvaini, who wrote in the late 1250s and worked for the Mongols, even visiting the court of Great Khan Mink. Generally, Juvaini is regarded as pro-Mongol, especially compared to contemporary Arab and Persian writers, like Ibn al-Athir, Nazavi, and Juzjani. But Temur Malik's tale shows why we should be cautious with the connotations of this designation. Juvaini saw the Mongol destruction of Khwarezm as a tragedy beyond measure, and from him we received the most inflated numbers of lives lost. The Mongols were not just his employers, but God's wrath. It is Juvaini who shares the story of Chinggis Khan telling the citizens of Bukhara that he was the punishment of God. Eager to find heroes among his fellow Muslims, figures like Jalal al-Din and Temur Malik stand tall in Juvaini's work. Note the comparison of Temur Malik to Rustam. Rustam was a hero from the Persian national epic, the Shahnama, perhaps the most famous work in the Persian language, and Rustam its most famous hero, a Hercules-like figure. Thus, to say Rustam would be fit to be only Temur Malik's servant is quite the statement. Throughout this chapter, quotes from the Shahnama are interspersed throughout. For someone familiar with it to read this section in the wake of the Mongol conquest, it would have been a powerful segment. Certainly, some aspects of the story are exaggerated. Juvaini always adds extra flourishes to his work. Often, people defeated by an enemy, especially a foreign one considered culturally inferior, like to portray their defeat in a Thermopylae-type manner. Their own warriors fought like lions, but were simply overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of the barbaric enemy. Juvaini, giving inflated numbers for the Mongols, often falls prey to shades of this himself. Yet, as described best by Barthold, while we have individual episodes of heroism by the Khwarezmians, few, if any, of our sources provide similar escapades by the Mongols. Rather than rely on single acts of valor, what we see are Mongols following orders, skillfully carrying out the will of the Khan, and when setbacks occurred, swift communications between sections of the Mongol army allowed them to coordinate and respond to developments. Communication, rapid movement, and fighting on numerous fronts made complete mockery of Khwarezm's absence of unified defense. Honor was not won through personal heroics, but by victory itself, belonging to the Mongols as a whole rather than as individuals. It is interesting then to think who Juvaini's History of the World Conqueror was written for. The work was a well-used source by later authors. The famed Rashid al-Din borrows extensively from it. While Juvaini worked for the Mongols, literacy among them was never high. So, the History of the World Conqueror was written for Muslims, specifically Persians by the references to the Shahnama, and Muslim heroes are given great weight. Yet, it was a reminder. The Mongols were weapons of God, their rule absolute, and Juvaini their loyal servant. No matter how heroic, singular might mattered little against them. When we describe Juvaini as a pro-Mongol source, we should keep these things in mind then. This pro-Mongol source cheers the few minor victories of Muslims over Mongols, featuring a hero sending arrows into the eyes of Mongols while dropping one-liners like a 1980s action star, and describes in horror the atrocities they committed, yet also supports Mongol rule, mandated by God, and believes that by the time of Hulagu Khan, he was seeing a more civilized form of conquest. Using and interpreting the bias and intention of medieval sources is more complicated than just saying they support one party over another, and why we should never take an author's writing out of context. In future, we will discuss this matter in further detail, but for now, let this serve as a small example.